Hi, I'm Rachel with Patterns and Pixels Canada, and on today's video, I'll be working on block 8 of Reach for the Stars. Hope you enjoy it. For block 8 that I'm working on today, we are looking at this block here. And I have all of the pieces I need already laid out, and I've got my laptop ready with the instructions. The first step says to sew a light tan print B. Here we go. Light tan print B triangle to each short side of the medium print 1 rectangle. Medium print 1X, this one. Which means I'm going to end up with there we go. I'm just looking at the diagram they've given me with the instructions. I'm going to end up with this shape for all of those. And I think what I'll do is I will chain stitch all one side first. There's 4 blocks. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'll go over to the sewing machine. I'll stitch all of those together in a chain, and then I will switch and move to the other side. So I've come over to the machine to chain stitch those pieces, and I've realized I still have my walking foot on from the modern quilt workshop that I did the other day. So step 1 is going to be taking this tool that came with my machine to unscrew the part that is holding the walking foot on so I can switch back to my standard foot. So that screw comes off. I'll just put that to the side for now so I don't lose it. And then, oh, sorry, I forgot to raise the foot. Raise the foot. And then the walking foot just slides off. It's quite a big piece. And then this is my standard foot that I use. So to get this back on, I need to put the screw through that little gap there into the side here on the left. I just get it started with my hand, and then I can go back and use that tool to tighten it. Easier said than done when you have a camera in front of you and you're trying to, oh, there it is, trying to find the hole. Okay, so that's as tight as I can get it with my hand. And I just come in and tighten it with this screw. And then I've got this handy sort of cabinet here that I put that into because I do not want to lose it. And then now that I've got this device on, if I wanted to, I could push a little lever at the back here and take that foot off and change it for different feet. But in this case, that's the one I want to use for what I'm doing now anyway. And the next thing I'm going to do is just change my thread to a lighter cream. I'm using this one for the quilt that I'm working on, number 22. Again, the one that I've got in here is still from the modern workshop that I did yesterday. So let me just change that out and then I can start chain stitching. There's my first side all sewn on as a chain stitch. I'll just get that into focus a little bit better. There we go. I'm leaving them all attached right now. I can separate them later. And then all I'm going to do now is stitch the other side. So I'm going to turn them around so that I've got my stitch line on this side. And if I just hold that up, you can see that my two sides match, and I'm just going to do a stitch down that side for all of them before I separate and iron them. Looks like I've lost my thread inside. Let me just grab that. There we go. Okay, there's all my pieces attached. I just need to separate them and iron them open now. I always like to start my pressing with just a finger press to get it ready. Like that. And come in and just give it a press. The next instruction has me using light tan print H in this position. So what I'm going to do is cut off my dog ears just to help remove some of that excess bulk. And then I want to sew along that line. So what I'm going to do is just fold my rectangle in half and pinch to find center. And then I want this to sit that way. So I'm going to fold it wrong side together so that it sits nicely in the crease I made on the previous shape, which will help me to find center. Then I will chain stitch all of these pieces along that line and press them open like that. Just as with the first set, I'm going to give this a finger press first, and then that way I can just press my iron on top without stretching the fabric. And then these will be the dog ears that I trim off this time. Okay, that's the first unit finished. Let's go back to the cutting mat and see what the next step is. Okay, so this was step 1 and 2 on the instructions. Just take one out for now. Let's do this one. Step 3 says to sew dark print 1E, which is this guy up here, dark print 1E, to each short side of 2 of the units created in steps 1 and 2. Okay, so if I just grab 2 of these, looking at the picture, to each of the short sides. Okay, hold on, the picture shows it this way around, so let me just make it match. Oh, I see. Okay, so that's going to go on that side, that on that side, that there, and that there. Which means I've got a rectangle. Oh, okay. I'm creating this bit in here. Okay, so I'm going to stitch those up in the same method that I did the center of the blocks. I'll chain stitch one side, press it open, then come back and chain stitch the other side, press it open, and end up with my next unit. Okay, there's the 2 blocks or 2 units sewn, and I have checked their measurements. They're accurate to what the plans call for. And I just want to show you that I was very mindful, making sure that I didn't accidentally bury any of my points in my seam allowances. And for this particular unit, I have been pressing my seams all outwards. This quilt has quite a few seams, and it doesn't always work for me to press to the light side. I find that it can get kind of bulky in the corners, especially when I'm going to have this many seams. This is the block I'm working on. Okay, our next step says, sew 1 light print 1A. Light print 1A. Sew 1 light print 1A square to each side of these units. Oh, again, the diagram shows them this way around. Let's just move that off to the side. And they want the square on either side. Oh, now see, I've got patterns on these. So I'm just going to take a minute to sort of position the rest of the blocks to see which way I want the direction of these patterns to go before I stitch them. So I've sewn those 2 units, and as you can see here, I've slightly rearranged how my blocks were on my cutting mat, because I've said in a previous video, the instructions are showing how to sew this together when it is straight on. However, the quilt is actually going to be sewn together with the squares on point. So I find using this cutting mat helpful because I can make it to match the plans, and then I can turn it to be on point. And this is roughly what the block is going to look like. And then in terms of this lighter cream fabric here that has sort of these soft little diamonds on it, I've been making a point throughout my quilt of having all of these, as best as I can, going off towards the right hand side. Obviously, when I get to sewing this triangular piece around the center square, that's not going to work for all of them, but for as much as possible, I'm trying to get them all to go in the same direction. I just find personally that I prefer when I do that, even with a subtle directional fabric like this. Now our next step says to sew 1 dark print eye triangle, dark print, that's this one, 1 dark print eye triangle to one side of the remaining 2 units created before. Okay, so it's these 2 here. Only once it's sewn to one side. So I've just moved my computer screen to look at the diagram. So that's positioned like that, and that one's there. Okay, move these out of the way. So they want that. And that. Just one side? Is that what it said? So one dark print eye triangle to one side of the remaining 2 units. I sort of feel like I need to sew one on each side. Don't you think? But the picture looks like this. The diagram looks like this. So we are going to, oh, I see. They want me to sew it. This piece will come in later. Thank you, Seamus. This piece will come in later on when I do the center square that I've moved over to the side here. Hi, sweetheart. Please don't rub on the camera. Go over there. Okay, let me deal with Seamus and get these 2 seams shown. Hi, sweetheart. Go on. Come this way. Come this way. Good boy. Okay, so there's the units that they've asked for. Again, I was mindful not to bury any of my points. And it's going to fit together. Nope, that way. Somehow. Like that? Nope, hold on, turn around. Oh, I'm looking at the point. The point needs to be towards the outside. Magically. Somehow. That looks really funny. I think I've got it turned. We'll see. Next step is to take light print 1H, which is these guys, and sew them to each side of medium print 1A, which is this one. It gets easier at this point because I've only got the sashing left around the outside. And they want a square in a square. So they will be going on like so. All right, let me just see if I can figure out what's happening here. So that, oh no, it is point in. So point in. And that should be flat like that. Okay, and then it looks like that is going to go there. Point in. Okay, so you're going to go up there, which means it's you guys that are, there we go. Point in. Okay, I'm just very mindful that the last time I made a block, I accidentally flipped the pieces as I was going. I can't remember which block. It might not have been the last time. I don't think it was this one. It might have been this one that I suddenly flipped them, and I don't want to do that again. It's a lot of work to take apart all those seams. Okay, I think this, but of course on point, there we go, is going to be what I end up with. So I'm stitching that together now. And like I said before, I try to have all of my diamonds running in the same direction, but it doesn't quite work when you get to a piece like this, and that is fine. I just do it as much as I can. That center piece is now sewn together. And just to show you the back, I have been continuing to iron my seams all out from the center. Now, picture this as 3 units. This center piece is 1. Then I have 2 and 3 on the edges. So I need to make the center piece first, and then I can stitch the sides together to complete the block. To do this center one, I will be attaching these pieces along the sides. This is the point I'm going to be very mindful about on each one. Normally with these little pieces, I'm able to just put them through the machine without needing to use pins. In this case, because I want the seam to line up perfectly, you can see that the way I've been ironing everything out, I can nest my seams. Let me see how close I can get. And I'll just focus in on that a little bit better. Maybe, if the camera will let me. So I'll be able to feel that bump as it goes through the sewing machine, and I'll be able to tell whether or not they're butted up against each other or nested, which is what I want. But because I want to be extra accurate, I will put a pin right through my stitching on this side and make sure it comes out right through my stitching on the other side. Once I've done that, I'm actually then going to put a couple of pins on either side, just because, as I've said before, as you put your fabric through the machine, there can be a bit of pull. And I want to make sure that when I open this up, I have a perfect point where all 4 pieces of fabric meet up. All right, let's go over to the machine and get that job done. This is the block sewn together, and I have done a quick little measure. It's the right size it needs to be. But I wanted to show you how I press the seam for this one. I've only done this side. You can see that this side is still quite loose because I haven't pressed it yet. And this is why. I've used a fanning seam on this side to help with the bulk. And the reason why is because I have this point going out towards the edge of my block. This one, though, wants to go in. I could force it with the iron and push it out, but then I'm ending up with quite a bump right here because I have so many layers of fabric sitting in that one spot. What I want to do is allow the fabric to sit the way it wants, with that one going out and this one going in. But then the problem becomes, what do I do with this in the center? I'd end up with a bit of a twist. And that's where you fan your seams. To do this, you'll need a pair of scissors, and you're going to come to where you can see the edge of your fabric, and you're going to give it a very, very little snip, being careful not to take out the stitching that you've just done. And that will be on that side. Then turn your work over and do the same thing where the edge of the fabric is on this side. Again, being careful not to take out your stitching. Now when I lay my work down, this seam will be able to go the direction that it wants, and so will this one. And then this center piece can be opened or fanned out. That's how we get our name, fanning the seam allowance. And it ends up looking like a little square of your 4 pieces of fabric that you've been using. Now to press this, what I'm going to do is turn it over, and I'm going to do one side at a time. So this one wants to finger press that way. So I can come in and give that a press. And then this one, let me just check, yes, okay, wants to go the opposite direction. Give that a bit of a finger press. And then I'll flip it back over, and now I can press it with this center open. And all this is doing is helping my quilt to lie as flat as possible. You do not have to do this, but I would like to reduce as much bulk as possible so that when I come to quilting my top, my flimsy, I don't end up having the needle bump over a bulky bit of fabric. On this type of quilt, you probably wouldn't see that in my stitching because the fabric is so busy. But if I had something with solids or tone-on-tone fabric, and especially if I then chose a contrasting thread, you would definitely notice if suddenly the stitching went in a different direction than it was supposed to. Okay, so it was these 4 pieces that I wanted to make sure matched up, and I think I have gotten it to such a place that I'm happy. My points are all visible. Now let's go back over to the cutting mat and see about getting the 2 sides sewn on. This is my block so far, and I have checked and rechecked. Everything is facing the way it's supposed to be. All of these sort of blue triangle points are going in towards the center. And I've just noticed I've forgotten to cut off my dog ears, so I will do that before I stitch it. But now all I need to do is run a seam along that edge, and then the same thing again on this side to finish the main part of the block. And then I can take these pieces and they will get stitched along the side. And we're nearly there. The center of the block has been sewn, and these are the points that I was mindful of making sure matched up in my work, and I'm quite pleased with them. In terms of ironing, I did the same thing that I did initially. It doesn't quite fold out to be 4 corners, but because I had the point from my center square and the point from those edge pieces all lined up in the same space, it was just getting very thick and I couldn't get it to flatten nicely. So I just snipped the sides and opened it before I pressed it, still pressing everything out from center, which is the same thing I've done for all of my blocks. And I have started now sewing on the sashing on the sides. I've done the top and the bottom. And the reason why I've done that is so that when I go to put on my next piece, I'm going to end up with a seam line here. And if I can show you that on one of my previous blocks, this one's completed, and you can see where the 2 pieces of fabric join. Now, obviously I've picked such a busy pattern that when you stand back from the block and look at it, it's not immediately obvious that there's a seam line there. But what I have made sure to do is all of my blocks are on point in this position, and I've made sure to sew the top and the bottom sashing first before I've done the 2 sides. And that way the seam on all of my blocks is in the same place. It's just another way to sort of level up your quilting. It shows that you've put some thought and consideration into how you've done your work, if there's a consistent flow across all of your pieces. And you can see actually while I've got this block here that again, I tried to get my blocks, my diamonds to all go in the same direction as much as possible. And then for the ones where it wouldn't work, I tried to match them with each other. Same thing with, if I just come in a bit closer, this fabric has a subtle tone-on-tone stripe that I tried to make sure was consistent throughout my quilt, throughout each of my blocks. What I need to do now to finish this off is sew on 2 more pieces of sashing onto either side, and then I can get this block up on the wall. There we are. Block 8 of Reach for the Stars is all finished. And I have to say, I kind of like it. I think that block that I've done today is helping to balance out that one at the top that had a lot of blue in it. This one, it doesn't have as much blue, but it does read as having a lot of blue, especially when you compare it to, I was just looking in the camera, that one that doesn't have any blue in it. So it's helping to balance things out a little bit. If you've liked this video and you'd like to see more of my work as well as the rest of this quilt as I work on it, then you know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe, and bell notification. Bye.